everybody, welcome to another video. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Ali V, and in today's video, we're gonna talk about Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. So a couple interesting tidbits about Ophiuchus. One, Ophiuchus, as far as the zodiac is concerned, is not actually considered part of the Western zodiac, but astrologers to this day refuse to acknowledge it because they say that it destroys everything, which I can understand. For those of you who are interested in recognizing Ophiuchus, which I don't mind doing that personally, and I do know some people out there that do recognize themselves as Ophiuchus, these dates are going to be from November 30th to December 17th. So if you're in that date range, you are technically an Ophiuchus if you wish to identify yourself as that. And it's the constellation in between Sagittarius and Scorpius. Let's talk more about Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus in Latin literally means serpent bearer. That being said, in Greek mythos, the closest person that would be a serpent bearer would be Asclepius. Asclepius, you might know a symbol of Asclepius in your everyday life, or maybe not, because they really get the symbols confused. It's the snake going around the rod. And you see it a lot on EMTs and in medical facilities. However, it gets really confused with the staff of Caduceus. And the staff of Caduceus, I think I said that right, that's a symbol of Hermes. So it's not actually anything to do with Asclepius. So I think there's a common misconception that the staff of Caduceus is actually a symbol of healing, which it kind of sort of is, but it's really not, because it's more akin to the messenger god of communication and swiftness. I think at some point someone got confused probably and decided that they were going to use the Caduceus staff instead of the rod of Asclepius to indicate like a healing icon. That's something I learned today. It was kind of funny. I was like, I swear to God, this is not the right symbol. And it turns out it's not right at all. So, and there are two different symbols. They're very confusing. Anyway, so the reason why snakes are closely associated with Asclepius and Ophiuchus is that in Greek mythology, according to one myth, Asclepius was traveling with his mentor and they encountered a serpent. And Asclepius got real freaked out and he killed it. And the serpent's mate came up to Asclepius and its dead mate, and it had herbs in its mouth. And it fed the herbs to the dead snake and resurrected the snake that Asclepius killed. When he saw that, he knew that he had to learn how to do that himself so that he could actually resurrect his friends. They also say that Asclepius and Ophiuchus are two completely different people. There also is contradicting information that says that Ophiuchus and Asclepius are the same person. So I'm not really sure what he is. I'm not sure who he's supposed to be, the 13th sign, but I'm pretty sure that it's safe to say that I think that the Ophiuchus constellation represents Asclepius, because I don't know of any other person in the mythos that is represented by snakes in such a predominant way. So Ophiuchus and Asclepius were not originally gods, they were humans. Asclepius' dad was Apollo, who is the god of the sun and light and basically everything. I originally thought that Helios was the god of the sun, but maybe there's another god of the sun, or maybe he just wasn't as popular. Asclepius' mom was a nymph named Coronis, and she was actually murdered by her husband Apollo for cheating on him. And Apollo basically performed a C-section on his dead wife and rescued Asclepius from his mother's womb. How completely screwed up is that? That's messed up. So at that point, I think Apollo realized that he's just such a bad dad and such a terrible father. He asked he asked the centaur, Chiron, to take care of Asclepius for him. But Chiron is actually a mentor. He's a centaur. So he's a half man and a half beast, like a half horse, basically. And in Greek mythology, centaurs were not looked at nicely. People did not like centaurs. They didn't trust them. They said that they were beastly and they were savages and etc. And actually a lot of them were made for war and a lot of them were really savage and brute. But Chiron was different because Chiron was compassionate and he was incredibly smart. He was a master of archery. He was a master of music and language and most of all, healing. So Chiron took in Asclepius and raised him like his son, basically. And so Asclepius learned how to be an amazing healer, not only by his dad basically being a god, right? He learned from Chiron as well. And Chiron had learned I want to do a whole nother video on Chiron because he is super cool and I just really love his story. Chiron mentored Achilles and Jason and Hercules. Also, a little funny fact, I just realized that Chiron is actually represented in the Disney movie Hercules as Philotocles or Phil, whatever that guy's name is.
Hey, isn't that the goat man who trained Achilles? Watch it, pal.
And Danny DeVito, I just put it together and I was like, oh my God. Chiron basically raised Asclepius, taught him everything he knew. So according to the myth, Asclepius became so skilled that he could eventually bring dead people back to life. This was a big problem because, Hades is over here like, excuse me.
What? Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
You're taking my people and they're supposed to be dead. It really scared the other gods because they thought that Asclepius was going to upset the balance between life and death. So that being said, Zeus decided that he was gonna strike down Asclepius with a thunderbolt and just completely wipe him out. So Apollo was so mad that Zeus had killed his son that he threatened that he would remove healing worldwide. No heal at all, nothing, if he didn't bring Asclepius back. Zeus agreed to bring back Asclepius and he made him a god and he put him up into the constellation, which is now considered Ophiuchus. So Asclepius then became the god of healing and medicine, and he was worshipped in ancient Greece and Rome as a deity who could cure any illness and any disease. So a little bit more about Asclepius. Asclepius actually married Epione, who is the goddess of healing and soothing pain. She was the goddess of Advil, I guess. So Ophiuchus, the constellation, the 13th sign, its ruling planet is actually a planetoid called Chiron. And it's interesting because Chiron it's a real planetary object. It's a mix between a comet and an asteroid. It's said to be from the Kuiper Belt between Jupiter and Neptune. It has a strange kind of erratic 50-year orbit between Saturn and Uranus. So this little planetoid is about the size of London. It's pretty small, but not that small. They call this little thing, this little planetoid, Chiron. And if you think about the planetoid, it's made up of exactly half and half. It's half an asteroid and half a comet. And I think it's funny because Chiron is half a man and half a horse. I just like that correlation. I think that's kind of why they decided to name that particular planetoid Chiron, because of its duality in that way. So Ophiuchus, the way that I see this sign, I recognize it as a transformational, it's almost like a realm, like the 13th realm. It's like the last realm where humans have lived their lives and now they're in this other sphere of being or something. Ophiuchus is going to be the culmination of all 12 signs. We know that Pisces is the culmination of all 12 signs, and every sign before Pisces is going to know everything above it. That's why they call Aries the first sign, the child of the zodiac, because Aries doesn't know anything above where it's at right now. Not to say that they're stupid, it's just to say like that's kind of the cycle of human life. So you have, all the way from birth to death. Pisces just happens to be at the end of that cycle. And what's at the very end of that cycle is Ophiuchus. So Ophiuchus is a healer type, all-knowing, compassionate, has mercy on people. Ophiuchus is just. They have a lot of similarities between Sagittarius traits and Scorpio traits. They do not have an element and they do not have a modality. So basically your element is spirit, because there's really no association that I was able to find, at least. So I have an original character that I've created for my Astro Bunny universe story. She represents Ophiuchus in the zodiac. So all of my Astro Bunnies actually they're directly representative of all the different signs in the zodiac, and she is actually the leader of the bunnies. She's actually really cool. So I've done a lot of research on Ophiuchus. I think Ophiuchus is really, really cool. I love the lore. I find that it's very interesting how Asclepius was raised. I love the story of Chiron. And in another video, I will go over Chiron and where Chiron came from and what impact Chiron has had in astrology and in Greek mythology, because he basically was basically daddy daycare for like all of these heroes in Greek mythology. So he had a lot to do with the success and power of many gods in Greek mythos. So yeah, are any of you Ophiuchus? Do any of you align with Ophiuchus? What are your thoughts about Ophiuchus? Do you like the story? Isn't Apollo kind of a screwed up dad? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you have something you'd like me to deep dive on and talk about, I'll be happy to address it in the comments below. And thank you so much for joining me, and have an awesome day. Peace.